let's now go to the question of the fuel prices that are suspected from today to go up and by 7%, and which obviously has forced the hand of government to seek to remove some of the levies that account for the high price on fuel from it. Parliament is expected to, in accordance with the Fees and Charges Act, to the President's decision to approve the price stabilization and recovery levies on petroleum products. So 2 items appear to suffer so that it will cushion people. Now, let's welcome our next set of guests joining Roxanne on this issue. Thank you very much for your time, Senor Osi. Dr. Charles Rekuburobe, thank you.
The pleasure is mine.
Great. Senor Osi is the CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. Dr. Charles Rekuburobe, thank you so very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Great. So, Senor, try and help us understand. And Dr. Tio Champon, thank you so much.
Hello.
Great, you are on. Thank you. So you try and help us understand what is going on with this fuel price ritual, and it looks like we are getting to unsustainable levels as far as the increases are concerned, and it will impact in a significant way on almost everything.
Yeah, Samson, I've said on the show before, Ghana is a price taker on the world market. We are not price makers. We don't supply or produce enough oil to determine or influence the price of oil in the world. And that won't change anytime soon. So we are actually just taking the effect of the general global situation, which is also ingrained in very strong economics. We already are debating a transition from oil and gas or fossil fuels. So investments going into fossil fuels are pretty low. The main OPEC operators are very clear in their mind that they have quite a shorter lifespan as far as their ability to control and command the dynamics of the community going forward. So this is Christmas time. This is the only time that they can optimize returns. They are not boosting supplies to help impact the price downwards. So nothing much is going to change. When you look at the prices today compared to what it was last year, it's a 110% increase on, say, the world prices for diesel. Compared to pre-COVID, it's about 18 or less than 19% increase. There's been a hit. They are going to recover. On the pump market side, today as we speak, we're still in the old, we are starting a new window, which starts today. We're looking at 39% and now going to be about 42% compared to what pump prices were last year. If you look at our price structure in Ghana, taxes account for close to 40% of our pump prices. It's going to go down a bit because what market prices have gone up, and possibly we're also going to see a reduction in the price stabilization recovery levy. There are a few things government must do, and government often loves to react. These are things they should have done years ago. We've been talking about it, but nobody listens till there's an urgency. The key thing here is your exchange rate. It's one of the ways you can influence your prices. The other one is for you to rationalize your taxes. There's a lot of inefficiency in our tax structure today. I can walk us through and show almost every inefficiency in that, in which in itself could save us some 10% savings. You also look at our market structures in itself, and you realize that we can optimize our supply chain and take hedge positions that can help us. We are a net exporter of oil, meaning we make income when we export and prices go up and we export crude. But we take a lot of stress on the downstream side when it has to do with the purchase or the distribution of petroleum products. There's a possibility of hedging against cash settlements. So if government says that, I think it will be unsustainable for us when prices go beyond $500 per metric ton, or crude prices go beyond $60 per metric ton on the downstream sides. We can actually take a hedge option. You take an option, and anytime prices go up, your counterparties will give you the money. When they give you the money, you also reduce your taxes, so you also don't lose on the tax front or the revenue part of government, while still making a big break on the upstream side. Governments have not really put in place a proper hedge program that fits a deregulated system. You take the exchange rates. The central bank, if you look at the FX today on the central bank website, it shows you something around what, 5.88 thereabout. You and I know that dollars are not 5.88 in this market, but the central bank is giving dollars at 5.88 to some people. In times of speculation like this, what you see the market pricing will be 5.25. That is what consumers are paying for fuel. But if the central bank is able to give others this 5.88, why don't we have an FX market for the oil market, so that the government from time to time can intervene and supply FX, which is being used to buy chopsticks and the kotoje? Rather direct that towards oil specifically, so we can reduce the prices of fuel. That alone can reduce prices by about 4%. We haven't seen proactivity on the part of the central bank. The chamber has and the Association of Bankers have filed proposals to try and mitigate these things from time to time. We've still not had proper cooperation from the central bank. I hope that in the next few weeks we'll probably get some attention from them that can help solve this problem. Ghana can do very little. I'm going to walk you through the taxes, if I have your permission, and probably address some of the inefficiencies we have in there.
Right, we'll do so. But before that, the press release we had in the course of the week said that the price would be revised on Friday. That's yesterday. Has that happened? And are we setting of the percentage of increase now?
I'm unable to confirm whether that has happened, because where I sit, I've still not seen an act of parliament that can legitimize that yet. But I believe that in the course of time, that would really come up. My consultation with some of the oil marketing companies does not really support that fact for now. I'm pretty sure a new price would must have been circulated at midnight today. I'm yet to see that, to see if it's in there. But it's only parliament who can actually revise that tax. And unless Honorable Daffy Amako can confirm if a parliament has acted,
and we don't expect less than 7%.
Not necessarily. It's a deregulated market, so I would not want to speculate on that particular part. Prices on the world market have moved by 9%. It will not necessarily translate into a 9% increase at the pump, because price and taxes account for about 40% of it. So maybe somewhere around 6% will be something that's more practical to look at. And
the step taken by government, what impact will it bring? And as you address that, then you bring the tax components discussion to us.
It's going to save us some 14 pesewa per liter cost at the pump. That's going to be it. The price stabilization recovery levy is part of the ESLA Act levies, and it's actually meant to help fund the subsidies on premix and residual fuel oil. There's a need for us to review that entire policy on premix and residual fuel oil. It is being abused every now and then, and we actually don't need that amount of money to really service that particular sector. But I'm going to walk. Let me go back to the taxes, with your permission. We have the energy debt and recovery levy. There's very little that can be done about that, and it goes straight to the ESLA bonds that are issued through the ESLA PLs. So that is dead good. You have the road fund. The road fund is significantly committed and actually under extreme stress, dead good. The energy fund, dead good. The price stabilization and recovery levy is what government is taking off for now, because it has enough income, or possibly has adequate enough income to cover the subsidies on premix and residual fuel oil, which I think government must quickly just cap, other than keep an open-ended subsidy policy on. We have the sanitation levy. Sanitation levy is a very inefficient levy. It's an irresponsible levy in that we are actually charging a different product for a different service. We should rather be having a polluter pay system other than asking everybody of what to pay for picking up your garbage. It's not a very responsible thing to do, in my opinion, and I've shared it with you guys before. We have the energy sector recovery levy, which is again a function of the weaknesses we have in our power sector, and we are asking petrol to pay. Are we correcting those things so that we don't have these taxes perpetual? I think that there's still a lot of work to be done on that. The SPT I won't speak about, but the price distribution and the UPPF margin, those are transportation margins. The price distribution margin is supposed to fund the cost of transporting products from one tank farm to another. The truth of the matter is that the cost at which we pay for transportation in our country is highly overpriced. That price has a lot of rent seeking in there. Every time a government comes into office, a new set of people called middlemen and agents now front transactions without trucks, and now cream off about 20 to 30% on the income that's supposed to go to the transporters. The transporters don't lose money, so why are we paying an extra 30% on that? It is possible to save 25% on that particular one, as well as the UPPF. The UPPF is significantly strained because there's a lot of illegality that also goes in there. These are rooms for optimizing our tax regime. Then we have the BOSS margin. My friend Edwin, who is the MD of BOSS, has done a great job at BOSS, and we must really commend him for it. But what's the BOSS margin for? It's for the maintenance of the facilities. We are giving BOSS 500 million cedis a year. Something 500 million cedis a year. For what? For them to maintain their facilities. Then the question now arises. BOSS makes its facilities available for commercial purposes. Every single service that it renders, BOSS is paid a commercial income. It is a limited liability company. Why should we be subsidizing them to the tune of 500 million cedis? We are actually encouraging them to be inefficient. It is no wonder that they actually run trading losses in excess of $600 million, and they have to use BOSS margins to find a way to keep paying for those losses. But when those losses happen to us as a people, to individuals around that space, no losses are made. Big gains are made on the private side. So we need to optimize our tax system and make sure it's efficient. It is difficult in this country, and politicians and policymakers must realize the suffering that we really have in this country. So when we are asking people to pay a dime in taxes, we should make sure it's optimal, it's efficient, and it is in the ultimate interest of the people. What we have today leaves a lot of room to be desired.
Theo, having been gauging the expectation of what is going to happen, how do you propose we go around this? Because it doesn't look good for the ordinary person.
I think a lot of some of the points I would have made, Senor actually has alluded to, and I'll come to some of the specifics as well. But there are three key factors that go into the pricing equation. And like Senor said, the price of the product is one. So we buy it in dollars, and then when you come, you have to sell it in cedis. And then on top of that, you've got all the hefty taxes and margins that, per my estimation and what Senor is also saying, makes between 40 and 50% of the price build-up or markup. And the interesting thing is when you examine the taxes and margins, there are so many line items in there that actually don't make any sense whatsoever and needs to be rationalized. And Senor has spoken to a number of them. So that is kind of the reality that we are having to live with in terms of the price of the product, where year-to-date crude oil prices have gone up about 66%. The freight on board prices for gasoline and gas oil also between 80 and 100%. And then you do have the exchange rate as well as the taxes as well. Now, on the consumer side, this is where it gets a bit interesting because the elasticity of demand, as we say it in economics, is actually different for the separate products. So petrol, diesel, RFO, and LPG. And what you tend to actually see is that when you look at, for example, petrol, it tends to be relatively inelastic. So you can pretty much put a lot of taxes on there, and which is what governments have attempted to do in the past, and you don't see that big of a shift in terms of consumer response. You do have elastic demand rather, on the other hand, for diesel and for LPG. And my biggest concern in all of this actually has to do with LPG, because the other point Senor has spoken about, that if we're not careful, LPG prices could go up from the current 7.8 or so Ghana cedis per kilo to around 10 cedis by the end of the year. But on LPG, there's almost like a 20% tax that the government imposes on that. And I think this is where there is scope to further cushion the consumer. In my view, we can actually have that 20% tax and remove between 5 and 10% of that, and that would allow or smoothen the consumption pattern. But importantly, this is also good for the environment. Many households, the research shows that the moment the price of LPG actually goes up, households engage in what is called fuel stacking. So you may have charcoal, you may have other biomass or fuel forms, and then you decide not to basically buy the LPG because it's expensive. And that is not good for the environment. And it also deepens or entrenches energy poverty in the country. So we have almost 2 in 10 of Ghana's population, 23%, that have just access to clean cooking fuel. So in essence, 80% of the population are still using all these charcoal and other wood fuel forms. And we need to gravitate or move them away into using cleaner forms of energy. And this is where, for me, really, if you deep dive into the data, I think there's a lot more we can do, especially on LPG, just to cushion consumers. And some of the other taxes that you have on the mainstream products, like the UPPF, I have big issues with. I think it needs to be rationalized. And then some of the other margins, like the bus margin, where I struggle to see why we still keep pretty much subsidize a state entity that is not being generating or sufficient returns to shareholders.
Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, look, you have come to this subject too many times, and gauging the development, what do you say? Because
not just too many times. I'm actually the author of the PPF. So we started in 1989.
Okay.
We should do something immediately. I mean, when Senor spoke, I was sorry to see him gloss over the SPT. The SPT was established when oil prices collapsed. And the social contract made by the government at the time was that when prices recovered, then the SPT would no longer be necessary. But like everything else, when prices recovered, the SPT has been retained. SPT, I don't know what it is now, but it used to be around 40 or pesos or whatever it was. There's also the toll recovery levy, which was supposed to last 4 years and is now 21 years in existence. There are temporary fixes which are occasioned by disruptions in the petroleum sector, but the temporary becomes permanent fixes and they add to the cost. So I think we should really look at the SPT, given that oil prices are now $30 more than what was programmed in the budget. That gives me the other thing. Look, as Senor said, we are now a net exporting country, which means that for every extra barrel of oil that we net, we are gaining $30. We are making a lot of money in windfall profits from the rising oil prices. And for the foreseeable future, because of the supply problems, the prices will rise. I believe that all that windfall profit being made must be used to cushion and reduce the ex-refinery pump price in such a way that it doesn't automatically lead to price rises.
Okay.
I also believe that toll debt and SPT must be immediately removed, because SPT was a specific tax, is outlived its purpose, and we shouldn't have it. Otherwise, we just simply keep adding taxes to things when most countries who are oil exporting countries actually make their people enjoy some of the benefits. In Ghana now, because we are an oil exporting country, the consumer is actually being taxed double, because each time price goes up, the pump prices will go up, and the government will make money and will not share that money even to the consumer. So there are specific things that can be done right now, which I think should be done to ensure that there is an equilibrium between the windfall profits and the price rises.
Mm. You are in Parliament now, yes, listening to the experts, yes, having spoken, 3 of them, yes, foremost people. Charles Rekubrobe has had a hand on these matters, and I don't know, as you sit in Parliament, what is it that you think about as the public get ready to face these financial difficulties? We're already in COVID, and it's not easy.
Yes, it's difficult to appreciate the policy approach of government. Government comes to Parliament and says that because we are in COVID times, approve so much money for me to intervene in businesses and sometimes in domestic affairs of people by actually transmitting money. Now they send money through legitimate means to identify groups of people who are in distress. And that's in one breath. In the other breath, or in the same breath actually, government comes back to Parliament and increases taxes on some of these products. We fought government, but they won't listen. Then when the year is drawing to a close, government issues a release or a statement and says that I have directed or I have given approval for the suspension of taxes that Parliament has approved for me to impose. I have suspended it. And that directive is, with all due respect, unconstitutional. Because pursuant to the constitutional provision in Article 174, you ought to have come to Parliament. Because it's very clear, it has to be pure. Even if you are given the mandate to suspend, to waive and all that, the exercise of that mandate will still have to come to Parliament for pre-approval. They haven't done that. So for me and for the NDC, this is a very populist and empty move. Because the benefits won't come to the people. Where the benefit will even come, there is an anticipation of it being reinstalled.
And this is for 2 months.
And this is for 2 months. So you can't gauge government's steps in the matter as strictly imposing or bringing relief to the people. Now, and I like what Senor did. Senor took trouble to deal with the number of tax components on the price build-up. And I agree with him that sanitation levy, like you and I in environmental law, one of the cardinal principles is the polluter pays principle. I generate my own debris or debris at home. I want to go and dispose of. According to the bylaws of the assembly, they charge a small levy, and you pay. And when the container is full, it is taken away. Meanwhile, government is also levying the assemblies. So as a people, we are suffering twice. Government levies the assembly for them to pay through their common fund. There's something we call sanitation levy. But the assemblies, through the use of their IGF, internally generated funds, are also taking money from the people. Now, so he thinks that should also be struck out. Then again, he speaks of BOST. The BOST levy. Indeed, just about 2 weeks ago, it was announced that for 2020, BOST made a profit of 31 million Ghana cedis for its operations for 2020. So I am in anticipation, and gladly so, that for 2021, they may improve upon that, or they will still be profitable. So if an entity makes a profit of about $5 million for its operational year. Why do you levy the rest of the people to give to that entity? So that too doesn't make sense.
Because that entity has some debt there that you need to clear, so
but
that,
the entity
so that it
that
can
now
find its feet.
So we need to interrogate that.
Can I intervene?
Yes, do quick. Yes.
The boss margin is so that boss can purchase petroleum for 3 months storage. Boss is not an operating company.
Okay.
Boss is to store, and I'm telling you this because I created Boss. The margin is to make sure that we can buy and store 3 months petrol so that if there are problems, we can be able to keep the supply going. The reason why Boss is allowing its tanks to be used by the BDCs is that you don't want to store petrol in a tank for 6-7 months. So really, you use it to turn it around so that the BDC, which supply the operational stock, can then turn it around so that you don't have stock sitting around. Nobody should ever believe that boss margin is for commercial operations.
So from what you are saying, that should not be a perpetual levy.
Exactly.
No, because as demand increases, the need for 3 months storage also increase in terms of volumes.
I'm thinking in a very commonsensical way, you need 20,000 to get a 3 month stock. I give you the 20,000, you take tax from me to get the 20,000 to get your 3 month stock.
Your 20,000 is not a standing figure. It keeps changing as your demand grows.
So I keep paying?
Yes, because you must always keep the 3 month supply as a strategic stock. That was both of them set up as a Shell or a BP or a BDC. It is there as a strategic stock as all countries store their strategic stock for a rainy day.
So help me understand again. Why don't I give you a lump sum and then so that the contribution terminates as a point? Then you turn that money over and you use it anytime you need that strategic stock. Is that not it?
Who is going to give the money at the point? You mean the government?
You take cumulatively from what I give you, so I don't have to give you forever.
Yeah, but forever implies that there's a limit to the 3 month storage. But I'm saying that it is not. As demand grows, as 4 pumps grow, I mean, in my 30 odd years in the industry, I've seen pumps, retail outlets grow from less than 1,000 to maybe 3,000 or 4,000 now. So the demand is growing. So to maintain your 3 month stock, you keep adding, you keep buying.
So let me ask this.
Okay, quickly, I am under instructions. I'll be right back. Okay. You develop it further. I'll be right back.
Okay.
You're welcome back. This Newsfile is the most authoritative news analysis platform. And Roxanne had his hand up. In fact, he was the one speaking until Dr. Charles Rekubrobe made that intervention. He still wants to come in and finish his point. And then I'll get Senor also to confirm what Dr. Charles Rekubrobe was saying. Yes.
Okay. Now, Sam, I'm a bit baffled by what Doctor said. I know that is his specialty. But if Boss operations generate profit, storage of fuel is their purpose for establishing Boss, and that is for their commercial operations. So I am struggling to appreciate that it says, oh no, the profit generated, the levy, the toll levy, the Boss levy is not for purposes of their commercial operations, and that it is for purposes of buying crude and reserving it for 3 months margin. So for me, once they are commercially viable, they are generating profit. Last year they said they generated $5 million. We should reconsider levying the people to invest in their operations. That's one. Look, fuel prices. I'm just told that fuel prices have gone up between January and now 13 times.
13 times.
13 times.
Sometimes you don't recognize that that's going on.
Because it looks infinitesimal, it looks marginal. So, but the number of increments has been 13 times this year. And that is very, very significant. And so I want Senor to come in, but my point is this. If government is going to reimpose these taxes, Then, like somebody said some time ago, that anticipation of death is worse than death itself. The anticipation of reimposition of the taxes is worse than imposing the taxes.
Yeah, Senor, let's hear you on this.
Okay, so first of all, my good friend and Uncle Tazad is quite misinformed on the structure. He actually started BOS, and that was the original idea he had. What you actually had was a strategic stock level. Okay. But under Bahrain, that was zeroed out. The LI 218086, which is the pricing LI that governs the industry today, clearly defines what the BOS margin is. Section 15, it means a margin incorporated in the buildup of petroleum prices used to cover the maintenance and operating costs of petroleum product depots and to undertake expansion programs of the depots. It has nothing to do with strategic stocks. Now, today, all the services that you have from BOS, one, pipeline, barge transportation, the depot services, all of them are charged at commercial rates, just like all the private depots do. At the time when we had the BOS margin, BOS was not a commercial entity. And if it was going to be storing products that government was going to finance outside of the BOS margin, somebody had to pay for the maintenance of these facilities. That's why we had the BOS margin. But BOS has moved on. It is now a fully operational and commercial entity, including trading entity. BOS leases its facilities out to the public. As a matter of fact, the NPA through policy, a policy called the zonalization policy, has actually made BOS practically a monopoly in certain areas. And that actually forces a lot of volume and tank tents for BOS, which is supposed to boost their income. The private depots charge about $10 for the use of their depots. BOS charges $12. The private depots from their $10 maintain their facilities, pay for the tank farm, finance them, pay their staff, and make a profit. Why can't BOS do the same? When you run a pipeline and manage the pipeline paid for by the state already, we still pay BOS for the use of the pipeline. BOS is a commercial entity and it does trading. And a little correction on the Honorable Dafia's side. With the profits, I mean, I start to be corrected, but I am quite confident that BOS claiming it has made 30 million CD profits includes the BOS margin as IGF. That tax that we all pay BOS, whether you use the BOS facility or not, it includes, is part of it. Your government, when it was beefing, left about $624 million in trading losses at BOS. All right. The current government also added its own, and now they have had to increase BOS margin to create an IGF, be paying all kinds of things. I don't think that's a responsible way of running an institution or running the policy space at all. BOS is a commercial entity. It cannot continue to tax the people unfairly, the poor cocoa seller on the street unfairly, to keep paying for its waste, when every single commercial activity of it is paid for fully by the same consumer already. And for assets that it uses, that was again paid for by the taxpayer. So that's, I'm sure Uncle Tazan may now understand that bit now. And if we had a strategic stock level, like you rightly said, government will now have to invest in the strategic stock. BOS does not need to replenish it. Those days, in Tazan's time, it was okay, they needed to replenish it because nobody was using the facility. But now that you have everybody using the same facilities, the refreshing of the stock is natural. All the time, government would have bought it once and doesn't need to have it going on over and over again. So this matter to settle it. And but one last thing, I agree with Tazan on the issue that on the criticism of me skipping the SPT. It was for strategic reasons because I don't see that argument being won anyway. But that SPT should actually rather be the vehicle for funding a hedge program that will insulate government's risk. And if the government is willing, we are more than happy at any point in time to help it. One of the immediate things that government should do is to engage the central bank with the oil sector to see how we can optimize the FX flows so that the competitive flows that the state gives to the market will be directed to sectors that have a cascading and general effect like oil.
Okay. Theo, so we will come back to this, won't we?
I mean, we've been at this in the last 5-6 years. Almost every year we end up debating this issue, and that's just the nature of things. But I think we have a fantastic opportunity to fundamentally rethink the makeup of these taxes and margins and the basis and rationale for it. One of which is the BOST margin, fully aligned to what Senor has been saying, that in a fully deregulated market as we have, and with BOST pretty much engaged in commercial activity, I don't really see the need for that margin, because that strategic stock argument, which used to hold place 20-30 years ago, doesn't really, is the case currently. So I genuinely think that we will be back at this argument. It's not dead. So long as petrol prices will go up, and so long as we are price takers in this equation, the arguments and the conversations would continue. But my last point really on this is that I think for consumers, especially for LPG, because that's where a lot of my concern at the moment is that we can slash the taxes on LPG by as much as half, and that would allow or smoothen the consumption, but also prevent fuel stacking.
Okay. Dr. Charles Wakurobe, do you expect that we could do better, like Theo is suggesting for LPG? We are only taking the 14 pesos per kilogram on it. Hello, Doc.
From that, look, why don't we talk about SPT? SPT came in from President Mahama because petrol prices fell. It was a specific act to correct government income. I don't want it that every time we do a temporary fix, it becomes a permanent addition to the price build-up. Nobody can justify SPT now because we are making $30 per extra barrel of oil as a net oil exporting country. I think the windfall profit must be applied to decrease the pump to consumers now, and then the SPT must be removed. There is no case. If Sonia wants to hedge, I don't think that is the reason why the SPT should be diverted from its original course, because it is putting 40-45 pesos on every liter. That's a huge cost to the consumer. And that gets translated to high transport costs because we don't have rail and metro, and that then becomes high fuel prices, high consumer costs, high KK costs. Now to buy almost 2.5
all right.
KK to be
okay.
satisfied.
Thank you so very much.